IELTS Listening, version 57262. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear a young woman phoning a friend who works for an airline to ask for advice about getting a job. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello?
Oh, hello. This is Ellie Fisher. We were at school together.
Oh, hi Ellie. How are you? What are you doing these days?
Well, actually, I'm looking for a job, and I was wondering about applying to an airline. You know, looking after the passengers. And I heard you're doing something like that.
Yeah, I'm working as a cabin crew attendant.
The job mentioned is a cabin crew attendant, so attendant has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello?
Oh, hello. This is Ellie Fisher. We were at school together.
Oh, hi Ellie. How are you? What are you doing these days?
Well, actually, I'm looking for a job, and I was wondering about applying to an airline. You know, looking after the passengers. And I heard you're doing something like that.
Yeah, I'm working as a cabin crew attendant.
Right. So what does that involve?
Well, you might have to give them the initial safety demonstration before takeoff, for example. You've probably seen that when you've made a journey by air.
Actually, I've never flown, but I'd love to. That's why I'd like a job with an airline.
Oh, right. And during the flight, you'd also be going round to see if anyone wants to buy anything.
So I'd be dealing with money?
That's right. You'd be responsible for that. And then, of course, you'd be serving meals and snacks and things.
OK. So can anyone apply?
Well, there are certain requirements. You must be at least 19 years old, and there's also a minimum height. That's 168 centimetres. That's to make sure you can reach the higher cupboards in the plane.
Right. I'm 169 centimetres, I think. What about qualifications?
You need to show that you have a good level of English, that's written and spoken, and also maths.
OK. Well, I passed my exams in both those subjects, fortunately.
And it's an advantage if you can speak another language, although for cabin crew it's not essential.
I can speak Spanish. I did that at school until I was 16.
Excellent. That'll be very useful.
And I'm pretty fit. I don't have any medical problems.
OK. Oh, and can you swim?
Yes.
Good, because that's another requirement.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10 on page 2. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Now, if you're accepted, you'll get a 6-week training course.
Right.
So that'll cover all aspects of the job, all the basic things you need to know, and then some special things, like what action to take if a passenger suddenly has some sort of illness while you're in the air, for example.
Right. I suppose you can't always count on a doctor being on board.
No. And then you'll have to do a lot of work during the training on becoming aware of the variety of cultures that your passengers may come from and the implications of that. That's really interesting, actually.
OK. Well, I'd definitely like to apply. What airline do you actually work for?
It's a small airline called Eurontas. That's EURONTAS.
Is that N or M in the middle?
N for November.
OK.
They're good people to work for. Have a look at their website. You can download the application form from there.
Right. I don't have much in the way of experience, though.
Well, what have you done since leaving school?
I worked in a supermarket for a bit, on the information desk. I was helping deal with queries from customers.
OK, put that down. That's one of the most important aspects of the job, in fact.
Oh, right. And last year, I also did some voluntary work as part of a team. Should I put that down too?
Of course. That's something else they'll be looking for, being able to work with others.
Right.
And a lot of airlines expect you to pay for your own uniform, but the good thing about this airline is that they provide it for you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Greg.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2 on page 3. Section 2. You will hear a woman called Marie talking at a conference to a group of people who work in the hospitality industry in Scotland. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14 on page 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Hi, my name's Marie Cooper and I'm here to tell you about the scholarships offered by the hospitality industry in Scotland. The scholarship scheme supports people currently working in hotels, resorts and tourist attractions. Each year, 100 people are selected to go and work in some of the leading hospitality organisations in the world. This time last year, I was wondering whether to apply for a scholarship and not sure if I had enough experience to be successful. I needn't have worried. The scholarship is open to people of all ages working full-time in the industry. The only stipulation is that you need to have worked for 3 years in hospitality, not necessarily for the same organisation. Of course, they're looking for ambitious people who want to get on, but who haven't had the chance to work in management or studied at college. So there are no minimum qualifications required. And you're just as likely to be offered a scholarship if you work for a large fancy hotel in Edinburgh or a small family hotel in the Highlands. As we all know, Scotland is famous for its fishing, golf, coastline and unspoilt countryside, which is why it's always been a popular destination for tourists from all over the world. Something like 10% of people in Scotland depend on the Scottish hospitality industry for their income, so it's vital that it continues to attract large numbers of visitors each year. The scholarships are a way of maintaining Scotland's reputation as a quality destination, so that visitors to Scotland continue to have a very positive experience.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
I currently work at the Rock Hotel in Perth as a trainee manager, but I joined as a receptionist 5 years ago. At the time, I was looking for work that fitted in with a young family, and I was lucky to get the perfect job for me, where I could take time off during the school holidays. I realised soon after I started that I loved working with people and enjoyed working in a hotel environment. Last year, I was lucky enough to be a scholarship winner. The application process was actually quite simple. I was worried I'd have to give a presentation in front of loads of people, but you just have to produce a report on your current place of employment, saying how you think you could make a difference there. My manager at the Rock Hotel was very supportive and gave me time off to do the writing and the research. Then, all the winners were invited to an awards ceremony. They were mostly working in different sorts of hotels, although a few were working at tourist attractions, and one was involved in the Edinburgh Festival. I'd expected I'd be one of the youngest, but at least half the people were younger than me. All the people I met couldn't believe their luck that they'd been successful, as it's not unusual to fail the first time. I was sent to the Florida Beach Hotel. Here the emphasis is on customer service, making sure that staff are trained to give customers a really personal service, checking that guests are enjoying their stay, so they're encouraged to chat with them, even if their job is just clearing tables. Quite a different atmosphere to some hotels I know, where the emphasis is on efficiency, which can make the guests feel in the way. One of the things we were encouraged to do while we were on our placements was to find out what people thought about visiting Scotland. That was quite interesting. Although everyone I spoke to knew a bit about Scotland, the majority had never considered a holiday there. And of the people who were thinking of visiting Scotland, they were really only interested in visiting Edinburgh and St Andrews. Anyway, on my return to the Rock Hotel, my manager asked me to introduce some improvements, and the first thing I did was to redraft our customer survey form to get guests' detailed opinions. This used to be given to customers at the end of their stay when they're in a rush to leave, so I decided it would be better to email them to customers at home so they have more time to complete them. It's another way of staying in contact with them too.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3 on page 5. Section 3. You will hear two industrial design students called John and Debbie discussing research for a presentation on a new building. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26 on page 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi, John.
Hi, Debbie. Should we get ready for our presentation?
Yes. Well, we have to give a presentation to our seminar group about Education House, the new government building that uses cooling, heating and water in an environmentally friendly way.
Let's start with a diagram of the building so the other students can see what it looks like.
Well, here's a very simplified diagram with symbols to represent key areas of the design.
Shall we look at it and see if we can explain the different processes?
Yes. Firstly, on the left-hand side of the roof, there's a cooling tower.
Yes, this is where hot, stale air from inside the building rises naturally up a chimney. There are exhaust fans mounted on the roof that push the air out.
Okay, moving along the top of the roof to the right-hand side, we have the weather station. This monitors how cool the outside air is. Once this is assessed, then the information is fed to computers and these activate the necessary heating or cooling processes.
OK. Let's talk now about the cooling processes.
On the right-hand side of the building below the timber shutters is the part they call the shower tower.
This is where water falls through a 3-storey tube, sucking in air from outside as it falls. The unusual thing about it is this fresh air actually helps to cool the building.
Yes, it's amazing, really. Okay, below ground level in the basement on the right-hand side is a tank, which forms another part of the cooling process. The tank is full of small metal balls. Water passes through this tank. Each time it does this, the balls absorb the heat from the water, making it cooler without using any energy.
What shall we talk about next?
Well, you see the balcony below the light shelf?
What happens there?
Rainwater is fed down from the roof, and this is where it's used to water the plants that cover the outside wall.
What about the square above the light shelf? It represents a window, doesn't it?
Yes, that's important to point out, because the upper floor windows get more daylight than the lower floor ones. The windows at the top of the building are smaller than those at the bottom. This means energy is saved higher up in the building because not as much heat is wasted through large windows.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30 on page 6. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Let's continue the presentation by giving our opinions on some of the features of the building. Let's talk about what we thought was surprising about the building.
Yes, it's not out of the ordinary in terms of size. I mean, it's well under the height of the surrounding buildings. Also, in the past, I think people would have been surprised by the vegetation on the facades, but that's become quite common now.
That's right. But we both agreed that the access to the building through a shopping arcade is quite unusual.
Yes, the way in is behind a small cafe, which is not what you'd expect. Now, should we mention the findings on staff productivity in the building? According to one article, the access to greenery and vegetation is increasing productivity by relieving stress.
Yes, I remember that article.
Researchers have been monitoring this for a couple of years now, so the results are clear. But to be honest, I think it's pretty obvious that you feel calmer seeing greenery around you.
Yes, we've been reading that in newspapers for ages, haven't we? So I wouldn't bother to mention it.
Okay. So, we haven't mentioned the edge space yet. You know, the place that's been marked for social interaction between workers, where you can have a coffee and a chat. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I'm just amazed the management allowed it. I'm sure all the staff love to get away from their desks, I would. I'm just not sure how much work I'd get done if I had an edge space to go to.
I agree. Okay, let's think about the water system now. They want to supply 100% of their own non-drinking water needs by recycling water, and it looks like they are on target to complete this stage of the project by early next year. But you know, I don't think the staff are going to respond well to this.
I agree. People just don't like using too much recycled water, even though it's been proven to pose no health risks whatsoever.
Well, I've really enjoyed researching this building.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4 on page 7. Section 4. You will hear a talk at a university open day to students interested in following a course in textiles and business studies. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40 on pages 7 and 8. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Thank you, first of all, for coming along to the university's open day, and in particular for coming to this talk to find out about our course in Textiles with Business Studies. The cooperation between the Faculty of Arts and Architecture and the Business Faculty enables us to offer this undergraduate and integrated master's course. In the 5 years this course has been running, we've learned a lot and it's become very popular. Now, thanks to the Faculty of Engineering, we're also able to offer a really exciting opportunity to those who would like to further diversify and would like to carry their learning through into new disciplines. Now, the aims of this course are firstly to create innovative and highly motivated textile practitioners within the disciplines of knitted textiles, an increasingly popular area, as you will have seen on the catwalks, printed, and of course woven textiles. Secondly, we also ensure that our students gain an in-depth knowledge and understanding of related business operations. We make sure that our students have sufficient hands-on experience by arranging interesting and relevant work placements. The focus of the integrated component of the work placement is the global market. Our aim is to locate studio work in this increasingly important context. Moving on to what we do in each year. In the first year, students explore the 3 subject areas of textiles in rotation. The emphasis for the first year is experimentation, and we ask for evidence of visual research, which must be supported by documentation and proposals for its application. In year 2, design and technical skills are related to the real world. Unlike many other university textile courses these days, we give our students the opportunity to choose an extra module on the traditional processes of design, which gives a historical perspective on their work. This can be done before introducing students to computer-aided design. Students at this point, Year 2, decide if they intend to complete the course at Year 3 with a BA Hons or progress to Year 4 and conclude with a Masters in Design. Students can also have tutorials if they feel they need help making this important decision. This reflects our commitment to student support at all times. Year 3 consolidates the knowledge gained using a particular learning style. It's called reflective practice. That means you look back on what you've done and analyse and evaluate your subject in both academic and professional contexts. This helps and encourages deeper understanding. Students produce a dissertation on a topic of their own choosing and a portfolio of their textile collection. Also, to help underpin the commercial aspect of the course, we ask for a business plan. On the subject of career opportunities, many graduates work directly within the textile business, with careers commonly found as stylists and retail managers. However, it shouldn't be forgotten that there are many other exciting opportunities out there. For example, careers in journalism, for those with a flair for words, or trend forecasting for those with their eye on the future. We are certain that we shall see broader and more varied opportunities for our graduates. If you like what you've heard today and are thinking of applying for the program and you'd like to talk to us further, please come back tomorrow. You'll have the opportunity to do a brief interview where we'll be able to assess your aptitude for this subject area. Many students who haven't studied related subjects may be surprised to find that they're quite well suited to our program. After that, of course, you'll need to go through the usual application procedures.
That is the end of Section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.